guess I'm supposed to talk.
Yes, you would love me to. Okay. Can you hear it? Not hear it? Yeah, I don't know how to get the feedback to go away.
Okay. I'll talk louder.
How's that?
Okay.
That's pretty good.
Okay. Hello, everyone. This is Juanita Siebert. She is going to talk to us today about her time in naval intelligence in World War II. I'm so excited. Hope everyone will please think of great questions to ask her after she's done talking. Juanita?
Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. And I want you to know my name is Juanita Smith Siebert. The emphasis on the Smith. Because in the military, you're known by your last name. You might work with somebody for years and never know their first name. You just know the last name. And the first year I was in, I was the only Smith, so that wasn't hard to keep track of. But then the second year, another young wife came in, and her name was also Smith. So I became Smith 1, and she became Smith 2. But fortunately, we didn't have many watches together, so it wasn't too confusing. As you all know, the Japanese attacked us, Pearl Harbor, in December 7th, 1941. And I was 19 at the time, and I had Japanese neighbors. In fact, most all my neighbors were Japanese, and I saw how they treated their women. One woman actually gave birth in the field, and she took care of her baby and went right back to the field to work. That wasn't for me. And I didn't want those little sly people to be in control of my life. So I decided I'd do something about it. And I went down and joined the Navy, but I was only 20. And you had to be 21 to be considered of age. So I had to get my mother to go down to sign for me. Now, first she thought she wasn't going to. She just stood there and looked at me. And I said, Mom, I'm going, even if I have to take my sister's birthday, which was 2 years older than me. So she finally signed for me. She went home and told my dad, and he went right straight through the ceiling. No daughter of his was going to join the service and just be a camp follower. I said, Dad, I'm not going to be a camp follower. I'm going to be an actual sailor, and I'm going to do work that they give me to do. And so he finally calmed down a little bit. And I took boot camp in New York City, and we had Marine drill sergeants, and he gave us no slack. If he said oblique, he meant us to go oblique right then, not after hesitations, or follow exactly what he said. And if we didn't do it immediately, he made us do it over and over and over until we got it right. And my best friend was just barely 5 feet. You had to be 5 feet tall to get into the service. And so he put her out to be the head of a marching group, and her little short legs, as long as my best friend, Grace, who was right behind her. Grace was 5'8", and long-legged, and poor little Sarah's heels were really taking a beating. So finally the drill sergeant noticed that, and then he put her back at the tail end. And so we learned to march pretty good with him as our leader. And then at the end of boot camp, they gave us a paper that listed the different positions that they would send the women to. And it came down to intelligence, and I asked my roommate, what does that mean? She didn't know. So I asked one of the officers. She didn't know either, so I said, oh, heck, that sounds interesting, so that's what I circled. And that's where they sent me, to Navy headquarters in intelligence. And that's where I stayed for the 3 years that I was in. My discharge papers say 2 years, 11 months, and 29 days. But it took 3 days to get home, so I actually was in 3 years. stayed in a apartment that the Navy had taken over for barracks for us. And a bus came and picked us up the next day and took us out to headquarters unit. And officers came, they take this girl and that girl, 2 or 3 girls, and find out I was down there all alone by myself. And Lieutenant Goldman came up to me and he said, "Follow me." So I thought, oh, what have I gotten myself into? We went downstairs, turned a corner, went down another stairs, passed the swimming pool, we went down 2 more stairs. I thought, oh my gracious, what have I gotten into? And he opened the door and everything was black. The ceiling was black, the walls were black, the floors were black, all the equipment was black. Everything was coal black. And I thought, oh dear. And he said, "This is where you'll be working once you get your clearance for eyes only." And that took a while because I had moved around so much, and they went to every place I had ever lived and to every school I'd ever been to and everybody they could think of to inquire about my character. And I finally passed and I got my eyes only clearance, and that's where I went to work. And the reason everything was black was because we put everything on 36 millimeter film. And I got so I could load one of those big round wheels with the raw film in there as fast as you could talk, and then we put them in developer and developed them. And then we compared them against other things, and every now and then when we would hit something that was relevant, it would light up like a Christmas tree. And we would send it down to what they called the strippers. And my best friend was just as straight-laced as could be, and she was a stripper. And we really teased Bert about that for years, about her being a stripper. And what they did was any message that's sent has a certain amount of extra food in there to confuse people. And like, for instance, they would say, the Red Sox beat the Yankees yesterday 3-2. And they would have to take that off to the actual message that was being sent. And that was her job, was to strip off the extra part of the message that wasn't relevant. And we did one time strip one off that hadn't come to be yet, and it was telling where a Japanese major warship was going to be at a certain time. And we sent that message to Admiral Halsey, and he met the ship and sunk it. So that was a big plus for us, and we felt very good about that. But most of the time, the codes that we were trying to break was something that had already happened. And we tried to break everybody, and we did break code. We broke German, we broke British, we broke French, and the one we couldn't break was our own. We never could break our own code because the United States uses what's known as a random code. It's never the same for anything. And today they might be using 1, 2, 3, and tomorrow they may be using ABC. And so in order to break the code, you have to think like the code maker does. And random codes you just can't think in because you don't know what random they're using. So we never did break our own code. We broke all the others. And sometimes it was good, and sometimes we were too late. But it was very interesting. It's terrible to tell people you enjoyed the war, but I did. I had really good teammates to work with, both women and men, and we were a very close unit. After we'd get off work, we'd lots of times we'd go someplace together and have some drinks and things and enjoy some time together, just friendship. I worked at that until I was discharged. And November 1945, I got home just in time for Thanksgiving. And it was, my mother finally told me to sit down because I had paced the floor. because I was so used to being visited 24/7. And when I got home, there was nothing to do. Most everybody had their work to do during the day, and there was nobody to talk to or anything. So finally, Mother said, "You're wearing a hole in my floor. Sit down." So then I decided that I would go to college on the GI Bill, and I went to Ellensburg, Washington, to the college there, and that's where I met my husband. And his name started with an S, same as mine, so we sat side by side. And John had a nervous affliction that he had gotten from encephalitis when he was 19. And every once in a while, his pencils would go flying all over the room. And it used to embarrass him to tears, but he couldn't help it. And I met him in October, and we got married at the end of December. And we had 51 and a half wonderful years together before he passed away from Alzheimer's. So I started to college, and unfortunately I got pregnant right away. And everybody thought, everybody thought I would just drop out and wouldn't go anymore. But I was determined to get my degree. And when Kathleen was about 2 years old, I finally got it. And as I was walking across the stage, this little voice popped up, "That's my mama!" And I accused John of putting her up to it, but he swore he didn't. So anyway, I surprised everybody and got my degree, Bachelor of Science in Business Administration. And everybody said a Bachelor of Science. And the professor I had thought that we were scientific rather than just plain administrative. And so he insisted that we all get a Bachelor of Science instead of a Bachelor of Administration. And that was rather unusual. But John went to work for a company as an outside salesman, and we decided that we wanted to go in business for ourselves. And we went down to Florida, and he talked to a man there who had several businesses, and he decided that we could open our own business in the West Palm Beach area. So that's where we had our store for 13 years. And then we sold out and moved to, of all places, Arkansas. And we were there for about 4 years, I guess, when we decided to move to Kansas. John was born and raised in Kansas, and he said, "No, it won't be humid there like it was in Oklahoma." I said, "That'll be great, because I don't like the humidity." And when we moved up, and we visited with his sister in Kansas City, and it was very humid there. John said, "It won't be like that in Kansas." He grew up in the western plains of Kansas, where it isn't humid. But in eastern Kansas, as you all are well aware of, it's a little bit humid. So after we were here for a while, I said, "John, where did you say you lived in Kansas where there's no humidity?" So he says, "Oh, hush." But anyway, we had an NAPA store, and that's what, we owned the store, but we sold NAPA's products. And that's what we had until John got sick and couldn't do it anymore. So we sold out. And he was home for 2 or 3 years before he got so bad I had to put him in a nursing home. And he passed away, unfortunately. But we had 51 and a half wonderful years. So, what else could I tell you? Anybody have a question?
Did you serve all of your time there in Washington, D.C.?
Yes, I did. I didn't tell you that, did I? When we finished boot camp, they put us down at a table with a list of the places where they would take waves. And I was going down the steps, and I didn't want to do that, I didn't want to do that. It came to intelligence. And I said, what does that mean? And nobody could tell me, so I said, well, what the heck? So that's what I circled. And that's where I ended up. Was in Navy intelligence. And we put everything on 36 millimeter film. And I got so I could load a rack of film as fast as I could talk to you and develop it. And we pulled it against other things, and when we would get something that would break, it would light up like a Christmas tree. And we turned it down to my friend's stripper. Poor person. She took a beating for being a stripper.
Could you only do intelligence in Washington, D.C.?
When I first got there, we stayed in a part of the house that the Navy had taken over for barracks, and they came, I think there were around 12 of us, and 2 girls went this way, 2 girls went this way, while I was standing there all by myself. A man named Lieutenant Golian came up to me and said, Smith, follow me. And we went downstairs, turned, went down some more stairs, and there was a swimming pool. We went past the swimming pool, went down 2 more stairs, and I thought, oh my goodness sakes, what have I gotten myself into? And he opened up this room, and everything was black. The ceiling was black, the walls were black, all the machinery was black. That was because we put everything on that 36 millimeter film, and we couldn't have any flashbacks or unnecessary things on there.
Virginia, what are you looking at? I don't understand what you were looking at on these films.
I'm sorry.
And when you were looking at the film itself, did it just have words? Were there pictures? What was actually on the film?
Symbols.
Symbols.
So how did you know if it was German or, had the different languages? How did you know what you were looking at?
Every country uses different symbols, and it wasn't hard to tell what country you were looking at.
So you're trying to break the code to find out like where they were going to go attack next?
Or just what their overall thinking was. So we know what to think. And
why did you pick the Navy?
The Army just never interested me. I came from a very small community in the Yakima Valley in Washington State, and everybody there went in the Navy, except one person, and he went in as a private and came out as a captain. He got a lot of field promotions, but all the rest of us just went into the Navy, and I don't know why, but nobody there ever seemed to think the Army was worthwhile.
My son-in-law is in military intelligence. He is Army, but he's now stationed at Scott Air Force Base, the other side of St. Louis. But in their office, where they're whatever intelligence, it's all kinds of top secret stuff, so you really don't know what he's doing. But there is Army, Air Force, and Navy personnel, all of them together there. Figuring out whatever they need to figure out. And he did binary decoding when he first joined the Army. So he's gone from the military police now, though, to military intelligence, and he's a major. So he's kind of high up there, and has some very interesting stories, but a lot of stuff he can't tell you anything about. So it's very, very, top secret type stuff. So
when I was discharged from the Navy, you had to sign a paper that said you would not talk about what you did for 50 years.
Wow.
You couldn't even tell your family. And 50 years had passed, and some school kids asked me to come talk to them. And I thought, no. I thought, well, it's been 50 years, I can go and talk about it a little bit now. And my son was sitting next to me. He said, I'm coming too because I want to know what you did.
I would bet. And I'm sure it's probably still that same way. You know, he probably won't be able to talk about anything for years and years and years either. So kind of hard to go home from work though and talk to your spouse about what happened at work when you can't talk about what happened at work.
Oh, it's not as hard as you think because you just have that mindset and you just sort of leave everything behind when you go home.
The one thing he did tell us though when we were there a couple weeks ago is the Navy guys don't wash their coffee cups. They like to keep them and reuse them and reuse them and reuse them, and it's kind of a thing about, I don't know how gross they get, I guess. So every time that he works nights when they're not there, he washes all the coffee cups. So I don't know, did you wash your coffee cup?
I don't drink coffee.
There you go.
Did Dad ever know what you did?
I'm sorry?
Did Dad ever know what you did?
Not, eventually. But
So did people
Yeah.
speak?
I can't hear you.
So did people speak like German or French? If you were decoding foreign languages,
Some of them did.
okay.
And it helps if you speak the native tongue, but you don't have to. You just have to think like they do.
Okay.
Could you speak it?
No, I don't. Well, I used to speak a little French and a little Spanish, but I just speak more English now.
I remember you were saying something about you had to stay up 2 or 3 days in a row without any sleep because you were decoding a message and you finally actually did break it.
Yeah, when I went in after boot camp, we were very short-handed, and we worked 72 hours a week, and we were like zombies. They didn't do that to us anymore, but we pulled many of 48 without a break. And that's rough, because I'm a sleepyhead.
Are there any
Don't let it.
special times that you remember that was really fun that you can tell us about, where you just had a really fun time with your
Oh.
friends or just?
One of the fellows that was in my team was a golfer, and he was from Washington, D.C. area, and he had won a title. And so he decided we all should get together and go golfing. Big mistake. But we had fun. And we got some hot dogs and buns, and we had a picnic, and he tried to explain to us how we should golf. Wasted effort. But we had a good time. The crew I worked with was very close, and both the men and the women was like family. And when we had free time, we spent our free time together, and it was just nice to be, you know.
Did any of them ever go on to date or get married from that crew that worked together?
I don't remember anybody getting married from that crew. Several of them did get married. One of the officers married a wave, and we all got to go to their wedding. But I don't remember anybody else.
And did you keep in touch with most of those people after you were discharged?
No. No.
They didn't have Facebook back then. You couldn't look them up on the internet and
It would be hard not being able to talk about what you did.
Yeah.
You'd want to talk about it if you kept up your friendship, I would think.
Oh. You just know you couldn't, so you just put it aside.
So was it mostly men or mostly women?
Where I worked,
Yeah.
it was about equal.
Okay.
How many were there?
depending upon what watch you were on. There could be as little as 2 and as many as 5 at a time.
Juanita, I read that a lot of the code girls were picked because they were good at puzzles and crosswords and things like that. Do you still like to do puzzles and kind of, no? You're done, you did it, you're over it.
Oh,
No. No more crosswords or puzzles for you. No more breaking codes.
no.
Was there a country that was easier or harder to break codes from than another?
Yes, the U.S.
What's the hardest? Who was it? Was there an easier country?
Our own country. We never did break U.S. code.
No.
Never.
Huh.
We tried, but we never broke them.
Well, that's
Like
good.
I said, U.S. uses a random code, which means it's never the same.
Right.
And British and the German and the French was not really too hard to break. We did break them, and we had a little British fellow come visit with us to see what we were doing, and one of the officers went through and said, "Don't show him what we're doing. Don't show him what we're doing."
You don't do puzzles in that, but you read a lot though.
Anyway, it was an interesting life. It's terrible to tell everybody you enjoyed the war, but I did. I enjoyed working with the people that I was with. They were like family. Like I said, when we had free time, we planned things to do together.
Was it difficult leaving the really, really dark room and then going outside to go home? I mean, I would think, was it hard to work in such darkness all the time? Was that hard on you?
No, not really.
No.
The first time that I went in there to work, I had to work, I think it was 72 hours. And when I went home, I was like a zombie. And I stretched out on my bunk and passed out.
Yeah.
And the major at arms came around to wake me up and made me go eat. And my bunkmate said, "Don't you dare touch her. She's been out here for 3 days, and then she just now got in. Don't you dare touch her." So she let me sleep.
Good.
Well, are there any more questions for Juanita? Juanita, thank you so much for coming to talk to us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Is there anything else you would like to add?
Well, not that I can think of.
Okay.
I enjoyed my 2 years, 11 months, and 29 days. And you asked me how come I wanted to join. My neighbors at home were Japanese, and I saw how they treated their women. I think I told you that one woman had her baby right there in the field. She took care of the baby and went right back to work. That wasn't for me. And I said, I'm not going to let those little Japanese flat eyes control my life. So that's when I joined the Navy. I knew I had to do something. And my parents were not exactly happy with me, but they finally agreed come around.
Juanita, thank you very much for coming to speak with us.
Oh, thank you very much.
It's been absolutely lovely to hear firsthand experience of someone who served our country and did so willingly.
Well, I didn't really have a choice. I had to do that. It was something I just had to do.
Thank you, everyone.